There are terrible things happening in Syria. There's a pogrom taking place against the Druze minority just because they're a different religion. And yet, there's no outrage, there's no reaction, there's no protest from the activist class. It's as if standing up against the massacre of Druze people is not fashionable enough for them. And at the same time, the mainstream media, like the BBC, is trying to justify the massacre. And they're not talking to the Druze people. So to put things right, in this podcast, I'm talking to Julia, a Druze Arab Israeli, who's going to tell us what's happening there and what she thinks of the BBC's report on the situation. Hello, Julia Hazima. Thank you so much for giving me your time. You are an Israeli Druze person, and the reason I've contacted you is because I want to find out more about what's happening to the Druze people and whether you think that the way it's been covered in the British media has been fair.
Hello, yes, my name is Julia Hazima. I'm an Israeli Druze. I live in the Galilee, Western Galilee.
Tell us what happened. So we've got this new government in Syria, which was the former HTS, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, an offshoot of Al-Qaeda. They're now in power. And Syria is made up of many ethnic people with different religions. And obviously the HTS are a sort of like being an offshoot of Al-Qaeda, are an Islamist group. What happened? Was it the government that attacked the Druze, or was it, as it's reported, it was like the Bedouin Arabs? Exactly what happened?
Actually, a total genocide from the whole regime. HTS, the White Helmets, the General Security, even the Syrian army, and Bedouins all attacking Suwaida province, the Druze province that also has Christians, Catholics, Rum, Zoroastrians, and even Bedouins living there inside Suwaida. So, after the fall of Bashar al-Assad, the Druze refused to be ruled by al-Julani. I would rather call him al-Julani. Why? Because his historical record is not white or good with the Druze or any other minority. Al-Julani, he's the one who established HTS, Jabhat al-Nusra, in 2011, and since it was established, it attacked the Druze, Alawites, Yazidis, Kurds, all the minorities inside Syria, and even the Shia. Unfortunately, they used it as revenge. They associated Bashar al-Assad with all Alawites, that they are Bashar al-Assad, and they massacred them under the excuse of them being his followers. So, unfortunately.
So we had this new Islamist government that stirred up the Bedouins and helped them to move towards the Druze province to massacre the Druze just because they're a different religion. And then what happened? Did the Druze resist, or
So, yeah, I want to add a few things. It's not just because it's a
sure?
different religion, it's because some of those Bedouins were bribed. Just today, we got a testimony from one of the captives that the Druze caught of those Bedouins. Unfortunately, some of those tribes were paid by the government about $300.
Right.
They tell a kid, take a $300 and go kill some Druze. So they would kill just for $300 because the economical situation in Syria is so bad.
Yeah, $300 would be a lot of money for them.
Exactly. Now, this is not just the reason that the Druze are being attacked after the Alawites. The Druze refused to apply to Al-Julani's requirements, which is that all the country, all minorities has to surrender their weapons and to live under the Sharia law. And the Druze know what's his historical background. He confiscated
Mm.
most agricultural lands of the Druze in Idlib and converted thousands of Druze into Islam. And the ones who remained, I don't know if they remained as a Druze. They can't even say that they are Druze. They have to say Druze Muslim or just Muslim. And they fast Ramadan. We don't fast Ramadan. We don't celebrate Ramadan. And they also do Hajj. We don't do Hajj. So all the Muslim rituals, we don't do it. They had to do it in order to survive. So it's more like survival. And in 2018, also, the first attack on Suwaida was by ISIS and also HTS. So this is not the first time Suwaida is enduring attacks. In 2018, it was brutal. It was on the 25th of July, between 5 a.m. till 7 p.m. About 4 villages were waken up all of a sudden by bombs, gunfire at them, kidnapping women, burning people, knocking on their doors, asking, "Are you Druze? Are these houses here also Druze? Is this village near you is Druze? So you're gonna come with us." Knock on the doors. Since they know that you're Druze, tell them to come out, surrender your weapons, and that's it. But all they did, they were taking them to execute them in the yards. So they killed over 250 Druze. The next thing they did, they went into the bazaar, souk in Sweden. They dressed up as Druze mashayikh, religious Druze. We have our own special religious clothing for men and women. They bought some and disguised themselves as Druze, and they bombed themselves inside the bazaar and killed Druze people there. So it resulted in the kidnapping of 27 Druze women. And we had Sheikh Muwaffaq Tarif. He is the Druze spiritual leader of the Druze community here in Israel. Since most of the countries in the Middle East see him as the official leader of the Druze community, he had to travel to Russia to have a meeting with Putin's representatives because Russia used to have its hold on Syria and to negotiate to bring back the hostages. And ISIS had the audacity to ask for $1 million for each hostage. And they had to apply in order to bring the hostages, but not all of them were alive. Some of them had miscarriages. They kidnapped pregnant women. About 3 girls succumbed to their wounds and died there. So that was a horrible ISIS attack on the Druze, led by the Julani. And now we have another massacre. It never happened. Like nothing like this happened before. So why would the Druze agree to live under the rule of Al Julani? Even if he is now with suit and tie, it doesn't make
Mm.
him another person
Right.
because deep down he's still a
And
Julani, and we saw his true colors.
and but this time the Israelis came to the defense of the Druze in Syria. Have they managed to stop the onslaught? Has it now stopped, or is it still ongoing?
So the Israeli army had to interfere. They did a few airstrikes on strategic places that all the Islamist extremist terrorists used to gather at, and gladly, yeah, they stopped entering those areas. The onslaught, it didn't stop completely, but it's not as it used to be in the beginning. There are still some clashes, so there's no ceasefire. Like Tom Barak, the ambassador, came out with his official tweet on X that they had negotiated a peace deal, a ceasefire deal, but like few minutes after it, all of them, the terrorists attacked Suwaida, and they kept on firing at them mortar shells. They used mortar shells, and they killed so many children, innocent ones, just inside their homes. There's a ceasefire. Why are you still attacking? One of the terms was that you retreat, full retreat from Suwaida. They besieged all of Suwaida, all of the roads from Damascus to Suwaida. They couldn't get out. So they had to retreat, but they didn't apply to that. And still, till now, they're still besieging Suwaida. They're under control of
So,
all of the roads.
so the Israelis managed to stop the major part of the massacre, but the
Exactly.
tensions is still going on, and the Druze area is still under siege by the
Exactly.
Islamists
Yeah.
that are supported by the central government. Now, let's just come to the way that the massacre was covered in the British media. I don't know. I think you saw one of the videos that I posted from the BBC. So they had someone from BBC Arabic first, and he was saying, "Oh, this is a routine thing. It happens all the time. You know, it's nothing unusual." And then we had their correspondents in Beirut, who was blaming one of the religious elders, the mashayikh, like you say,
Mhm.
by the name of Al Hijri, saying that he's sending hate messages, so sort of justifying the massacre. How accurate was that reporting by the BBC?
So it's a good question. So the media is trying to make it out as clashes, regular ones. It's not.
Mm. Not a
It's
massacre, yeah.
not a massacre. First of all, it's very important to mention that between Suwaida and the Israeli border, Ramata Golan, the Golan Heights, there is Dar'a. Dar'a is mostly Bedouin, 2.5 million Bedouins, and they were in good relation with Suwaida, with the Druze. They used to go like to each village, to each sorry province. Uh, it wasn't like this before. So there was something put between those two provinces, and unfortunately, the Druze got betrayed. Why? They were intensified and let's say more hyped from Al Julani, the HTS, and the extreme uh, I'm sorry to say this. I don't want to sound racist, but they were very, very influenced by Ibn Taymiyyah, if you heard of him, who made fatwas against the
No,
Druze.
right.
Um, so,
So it was actually the other way around. The
um,
BBC, the way the BBC reported it, it blamed it on the Druze religious
mhm,
leader,
yeah.
whereas the fatwa was actually coming from the Islamist side of it.
So
Um,
the fatwa
and
was
there was
made
no justification for the massacre.
on the 13th
Mm,
century. That fatwa was made on the 13th century by Ibn Taymiyyah, and his books are still being distributed in Jordan. So all of these Islamist terrorists follow his teachings and they're still denying that. In those fatwas, it makes the Druze and the Nusayris, the Alawites, the worst infidels ever. Jews, Christians, anyone like is above us. We are the most infidels for them. Like it's
mhm.
the like we don't even have to pay jizya according to them, even to be first to Islamize
Right, let me
us.
just
Like
explain to my audience.
yeah,
Let me just explain to my audience what jizya is. So, Julia just mentioned jizya. In an Islamic state, certain people of that follow Abrahamic religions can live in an Islamic state, but they have to pay extra tax called jizya. And what Julia is saying is that according to this fatwa, the Druze were so unworthy, so unclean, that they're not even worth living in an Islamic state, even if they pay this extra tax of jizya. They're just complete infidels, liable to be killed. So you mentioned that was the 13th century, that fatwa. So how have the Druze minority managed to survive in the middle of all those Islamists? Because there's only about 1 million of you now, isn't there? I mean, there are not that
exactly.
many of Druze. So
Yeah.
how have you managed to survive all these years?
So we had to be secretive. So if you just now Google Druze, what is the Druze? On Google, you might not find many information about the religion. So we are very secretive
Mm.
because all these years
It's
we
very
have been
mysterious.
chased, yes, and prosecuted. So in Syria and Jordan also, and Lebanon, they they mostly hide their identity, their religious and ethnic one. So they would rather say Muslim. Druze Muslim, Al-Muwahidun al-Muslimun, or Druze al-Muslimun. In Israel, it's totally different. I don't have to say that I'm Muslim. We have full full independent identity, and even recognized by the government. We are our own ethnic even group in Israel, just Druze. So they don't
And
have that.
isn't this interesting?
Yes,
Isn't this interesting, Julia? These idiots in the West that are marching in support of Hamas and all that, they keep referring to Israel as an apartheid,
yes,
whereas Israel is the exact opposite to apartheid, and the real apartheid is actually in most of these Islamic
exactly,
countries, where your right as a citizen is determined by whether you're a Muslim and whether you're a Muslim close to the version of the
exactly.
Islam that's ruling the country. So, where are we now? Where is the
Eh,
future? Um,
Regarding the spiritual leader, Sheikh Hikmat al-Hijri, where are we now? Now, Sheikh Hikmat al-Hijri tried to negotiate with the Julani's regime. Few of the terms that I'm going to mention is to allow the Druze to rule themselves inside their province, like the whole security field should be ruled by the Druze, the police stations, military, and not to surrender their weapons because they know who he is. They know his true colors. Even though the USA or the whole world trying to make him, oh, he's reformed now and changed, but they know him. So all these terms were not accepted, unfortunately. Hence, it put the Druze on the spot, especially after the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu came out with a statement on the news this year after the Julani nominated himself to be leader that he is offering a helping hand for the Druze, that he will protect the Druze. Why? It's true. Many Arab medias now are blaming us, the Israeli Druze. Why so? Because we believe in a principle called the preservation of brotherhood. We have to protect our sisters and brothers in the same faith, no matter where they are, whether economically, safety, it doesn't matter what is my nationality, even if they are in Lebanon and we don't have diplomatic relations, unfortunately, but I have to fight for them. It is our religious compulsory, let's say,
duty.
deed to do for each other. So
Yeah, yeah.
we try to pressure and work on this one. And Israel said this thing because we have a very long and deep relationship with the Jewish community here in Israel, even before the establishment of Israel in 48. And this relationship affected, let's say, Netanyahu's decision to come up and say that he wants to protect the Jews. And unfortunately, those very height monsters, I'm going to call them, across the border saw that the Druze now are new target to attack after them not accepting to surrender their weapons, to agree to live under the Sharia law, and to be part of the Sunni era or kingdom as they dream of. So they call them Zionists, traitors, etc.
So, do you think the reason why the BBC reported it as it did, which I showed in my video, is it because they just didn't want Israel to look good? Because the reality is that here is Israel, a minority has been massacred just because of who they are. Israel goes to save them. Obviously, that makes Israel look good. So the BBC was determined to come up with some sort of narrative to show, to make sure that Israel doesn't look good. And they made up this thing about the Druze leader sending a hate message. And no matter where I looked, I couldn't find what this hate message was. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the BBC didn't say what the hate message was, but there was no hate message, was there, from the Druze
No,
leader
no,
that
it wasn't.
justified such a massacre? I mean, nothing justifies a massacre. Nothing justifies the killing of innocent people just because of what religion they are or what ethnicity they are. And yet the BBC went out of its way to come up with some reasons. Oh, this is something that happens all the time. It was because the religious leader of the Druze that was sending hate messages and all that. How does that make the Druze people feel towards a media outlet like the BBC, which unfortunately is being paid by the ordinary British people as license payers? They have no choice. Well, they do. I mean, I've stopped paying, and I think more and more people have stopped paying their license fee. But it's incredible, isn't it, for a state-led media outlet to be so callous about a brutal massacre?
Indeed, indeed. It's terrible actually to see that they're trying to also follow lead with the Arab media,
Yeah.
Al Jazeera, etc. They all wanna make Israel look bad, and most of them condemned Israel when it attacked southern Syria.
Mm,
And some of the articles even didn't mention the massacre against the Druze. They were just mentioning, oh, Israel is airstriking now again in southern Syria. Look what they're doing. But no one
mm,
talked about that there are
mm,
actually 700,000 Druze being massacred in Syria, and also Alawites.
mm.
They didn't get any coverage from the media.
Yeah. Well, Julia, look, it's been great talking to you, and it's been very enlightening. Let's keep these sessions going because I mean I think the situation is going to be volatile for quite a while yet, and we need people like you underground to tell us what's happening because we really can't rely on the mainstream media anymore. Thanks very much for giving me your time, and let's hope we talk again.
Thank you so much also for giving me the opportunity to speak out the truth and spread the word. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.